General Hospital spoilers reveal that Michael's return is creating an unprecedented wave of change in Port Charles, not just because of his reappearance after a long absence, but also due to the calculated, cold, and strategic intentions he brings with him. Michael is no longer the man torn between family obligations and personal ideals. Now, he embodies a new generation of the Corinthos legacy, a man who has endured betrayal and loss, and who returns with a mindset ready to dismantle old structures and rebuild an empire on his own terms. The transformation is evident from Michael's demeanor. He hasn't come back to reconcile or forgive. He carries the aura of a decisive leader, with ambitions that go beyond the control of Sonny, Jason, or Carly. Most importantly, he no longer wants to be the spare heir. Michael wants full control of the Corinthos family business. Not just the coffee production or legal dealings, but the entire ecosystem Sonny once operated in the shadows, from the docks, to transport networks, to underground operations. Michael no longer avoids these. He accepts them, and is ready to overhaul them completely. Michael's change isn't driven by a hunger for power, but by a clear understanding that times have changed. He realizes that if he doesn't take control of the rising undercurrents, especially the growing influence of Drew and his allies, the Corinthos legacy will collapse into the hands of outsiders. And so, Michael is taking deliberate steps to restructure the family's operations. He's demanding audits of all investments, scrutinizing suspicious deals, and reshaping the inner circle, replacing those loyal to Sonny with individuals whose loyalty lies with him alone. But this transition isn't just administrative. It carries deep consequences for trust and power. Sonny, once the pillar of the family, now feels pushed to the sidelines, replaced by a colder, more modern, and logical model. Jason, still a trusted confidant, is beginning to realize Michael is no longer predictable. The boy Carly once knew is now a man capable of shifting the family's entire foundation with a single decision. Michael doesn't just want to preserve power, he wants to reform it. He no longer believes in running things through honor and fear like Sonny did. He believes in control, structure, and efficiency. If the business once bore Sonny's personal touch, built on loyalty and informal codes, Michael now envisions it as a corporation, systematic, process-driven, and ruthless. Even toward those closest to him if they stand in his way. And that is shaking the entire Corinthos power structure. Those who once stood firm must now choose sides. Long-buried secrets and old backroom deals among families and factions are being dragged into the conference room. No more emotion, just numbers, data, and cold practicality. Michael is becoming the focal point of a massive realignment, both inevitable and terrifying. He doesn't just want to inherit, he wants to redefine what the Corinthos name stands for. And if the gravity of his actions hasn't been fully realized yet, it's written in Sonny's growing silence, Jason's wary gaze, and Drew's simmering fury. Michael has entered an irreversible phase. He's no longer the son protecting the legacy. He's the one deciding how it will survive, or whether it will be erased. Jason and Sonny, longtime pillars of the Corinthos empire, have upheld an unwavering principle for years: operate legally, remain loyal to the coffee trade, and steer clear of criminal networks that have destroyed countless families. Though their pasts are deeply tied to power, the docks, and the underworld, in recent years, after many losses, they've chosen stability. For Sonny, it's a promise of honor to his family. For Jason, it's a way to keep everything under control without making more enemies. However, Michael's return is beginning to shake that business philosophy in ways neither man was prepared for. At first, Michael's comeback was seen as a positive sign, a new generation filled with passion, education, and modern leadership. But then subtle changes began to occur, quiet, but unmistakable. Michael ordered audits of all transport contracts. He arranged private meetings with partners near the border. He questioned the soft agreements Jason and Sonny maintained for years with neighboring families, deals that lacked strict terms but kept peace. More concerningly, Michael began quietly removing Sonny's loyalists from key positions, replacing them with ambitious young advisors, none of whom shared the family's traditional values. Sonny, who once believed Michael would continue the business on a clean path, began to have doubts. Strange signs emerged: a new warehouse leased near the docks without being reported in the official system. An unexpected shipment arriving 3 days early, without documentation. And whispered rumors of a secret meeting between Michael and a Caribbean-based trade conglomerate linked to international money laundering. Sonny clearly senses this isn't just a business adjustment, it's a forceful reshaping of the empire with a completely different moral code, one where efficiency and control outweigh honor. Jason, always the vigilant observer, is growing uneasy. He's not one to believe rumors easily, but Michael's behavior has become impossible to ignore. Once a son burdened by the family's sins, Michael is now colder, more reserved, and no longer shares plans with even his closest former advisors. Jason once thought Michael had simply become stronger, but now he fears Michael is entering the same dark territory that he and Sonny fought to escape years ago. Day by day, Sonny realizes he no longer holds the reins. Michael doesn't need to shout or issue declarations, he's acting. Piece by piece, the Corinthos empire is being reshaped in a way only Michael understands. Sonny feels himself being pushed off the board. And worse, he feels his own son is leading the family into a new version of the past they once tried to bury, a power empire built on manipulation, covert dealings, and handshake agreements behind closed doors. The doubts are no longer just feelings, they're becoming Sonny's constant obsession. As he faces the truth that the son he once protected might now be walking a darker path than he ever did. And if that's true, Sonny faces a brutal choice. Stay silent and allow Michael to rebuild the empire with a cold, unfeeling grip, or step out of neutrality and stop his son before it's too late. This is no longer just about business. This is a battle for the soul, of a family, a legacy, and a man watching his son become a reflection of everything he once ran from. And while Jason stands on the line between honor and loyalty, Sonny knows one thing for sure: something explosive is coming, and it may be the darkest moment the Corinthos family has ever faced. Michael is steadily rising as an unstoppable new force in Port Charles, and this time, he's not acting alone. As Sonny and Jason begin discussing retirement and transferring power and the family business to the next generation, Michael seizes a golden opportunity to reshape the entire landscape. But what no one expected was that the person he chose for strategic partnership would be Gio, the young man quietly emerging from a series of personal tragedies. When these two men connected, a new power duo was born, not just as heirs, but as the embodiment of a revolutionary restructuring. The alliance between Michael and Gio isn't just a family arrangement, it's a calculated strategic move. Michael sees Gio not merely as the son of Brooklyn and Dante, but as someone who carries the legacy of three powerful families: the Quartermains, the Corinthoses, and the Cerullos. That's a kind of political capital no one else can claim. More importantly, Gio brings sharp intelligence, communication skills, and an understanding of the new generation, exactly what Michael needs to build a modern, agile empire capable of surpassing anything Sonny ever achieved. However, Sonny and Jason's simultaneous withdrawal becomes the catalyst for unprecedented chaos. They were the symbols, the balancing forces, between power and ethics, between business and loyalty. With both stepping back, the old order begins to collapse. There is no one left strong enough to rein in Michael when he crosses the line, no one to temper his calculated yet risky strategies. That's when the madness begins. With Joe's support, Michael begins deeper intervention into transport networks, overhauls the upper management, and makes bold decisions Sonny once avoided for the sake of stability. Territories long maintained for long-term peace are dismantled and replaced with financial centers driven by technology and data surveillance, where every transaction is transparent in profit but more KY in terms of counterparties. Those once loyal to Sonny are forced into early retirement or quietly removed from the system. This isn't reform, it's a covert purge, with Michael leading the charge. Gio, once a lost boy with a concealed identity, now holds unprecedented power. Shaped by his own pain, he knows how to control others through emotion, how to leverage empathy from new allies, and how to stay silent when silence best serves his goals. This pairing, Michael and Gio, blends cold logic with sharp instinct, strategy with emotion. And they are sending tremors through Port Charles's underworld. Sonny, though retired, is still watching. He doesn't speak much. But nothing Michael does escapes the eyes of a man who spent his life navigating power. Jason, in his silence, also senses something wrong. Too little control, too much speed. And the appearance of new faces, younger, colder, unfamiliar with old codes. They don't serve honor, they serve results. And for the first time, Sonny and Jason feel like they no longer belong in the world they built. The pressure Michael is creating is no longer confined within the family. Outside forces are growing suspicious. Old allies are growing cautious, and former enemies are rising, not to fight Sonny, but to probe the threat posed by Michael and Gio. Because when the young take over, what they lack isn't skill, it's patience. And that's where all mistakes begin. Amidst all this upheaval, one thing becomes clear: Michael is no longer the child behind Jason, nor the son Sonny once shielded. He has become the epicenter of a new generation of power, sharp, ambitious, and haunted by unspoken obsessions. And Gio, with all his past pain, is no longer a victim. He holds the key to the stormy future of the reborn Corinthos empire. In the shadows, a new force is rising, and this time, no one can stop the tide surging hour by hour. Michael is becoming entangled in a maze of power with no exit, a place where the lines between morality and ruthlessness have blurred. As he reconstructs the entire Corinthos business structure, he begins to realize something. The presence of Jen Sidwell, a hidden but immensely powerful figure, is no longer just a threat, but an alluring opportunity. Sidwell, with international connections, the ability to manipulate money flows, and deep ties to political and financial elites, holds what Michael has never possessed: absolute power beyond the borders of Port Charles. From that moment, Michael no longer thinks like an heir, but like a conqueror. At first, Michael merely observed Sidwell from a distance, with suspicion and caution. But the deeper he delved into the financial web Sidwell had spun, the more he became captivated by its flawless mechanics, its morally gray but utterly effective strategies. He realized that the very things Sonny feared: manipulation, tax evasion, money laundering, control of illegal supply chains, not only existed but generated astronomical profits no legitimate method could compete with. A door opened. A new idea formed in Michael's mind. If he wanted to fully control Port Charles and eclipse Sonny's shadow, he couldn't remain on the sidelines of Sidwell's game. He had to join, or be consumed. And from the moment Michael approached Sidwell not as a rival but as a potential partner, everything changed. Quiet adjustments began, anonymous investments in Aurora's system, contracts signed with mysterious third parties, random shipments passing through Port Sonny had always strictly forbidden. Jason and Sonny sensed danger, but it was too late to intervene. Michael no longer shared plans. He didn't seek approval. He didn't need blessings. He was building a new power network, and this time, he was the center. But what makes it terrifying isn't just the profit Michael is chasing, it's the growing madness within him. The obsession with total control, with eliminating every rival, with becoming the one everyone must bow to, is burning away his conscience day by day. Michael doesn't just want expansion. He wants eradication. Old enemies of Sonny, from arms dealers in New Jersey to human trafficking rings in Florida, have become targets in Michael's purge. But unlike Sonny, who fought to protect, Michael attacks to dominate. Jason and Sonny can feel the insanity growing. They witness a Michael who is cold, cunning, and unflinching. A Michael no longer haunted by consequences, only driven by outcomes. Warnings no longer work. Family memories, Sonny's past sacrifices, all fade from Michael's mind, now ruled by numbers, gains, and the taste of power Sidwell has given him. Day by day, Michael sinks deeper into darkness. His new relationships no longer serve family interests, they serve his expanding ego. And while Sidwell watches quietly in the background, observing the rise of Dark Michael, Port Charles begins to feel a deep, unprecedented unease. Rival groups are dismantled without warning. Assets seized through legally shaky agreements, and fear spreads through every corner Sonny once ruled through loyalty. The worst fear of Jason and Sonny has come true. Michael no longer needs protection. And no one can control him. With Sidwell as his shadow partner and Gio as his right hand, Michael now embodies a new empire of power, a storm ready to destroy every moral boundary Port Charles once tried to uphold. And the most terrifying part? Michael no longer sees anything wrong with it. To him, it's only natural, because if no one dares change the rules, he'll rewrite them from scratch, with blood, money, and absolute power that nothing can stop. Michael is slowly stepping out of the light of reason and ethics he once cherished, spiraling into a world where power and control have completely overtaken emotion and family loyalty. His transformation is no longer strategic, it's a dangerous reshaping, where once sacred boundaries, like kinship, love, and honor, are now obstacles he's ready to crush if they stand in his way to absolute power. The more he's drawn into massive profits, seductive underground structures, and Sidwell's sweet promises, the colder and more emotionless he becomes. He no longer sees Carly as the mother who sacrificed everything for him, but as someone who might block him if she defends Sonny. He no longer sees Jason as the brother he'd once die for, but as a relic of the old order, an obstacle to be removed. Even Willow, the woman who once meant the world to him, is not safe if she dares speak out or side with Sonny, whom Michael now views as a symbol of a past that must be erased. Michael's willingness to use his loved ones as stepping stones to consolidate his power marks an irreversible dark turning point. His calls are now encrypted. His secret meetings are no longer held at the Aurora offices but in remote, unexpected locations, hundreds of miles from Port Charles. Those who supported him in his earliest battles, like fighting for custody of Wiley, are no longer allowed near the decision-making table. They've been replaced by new faces, cold, emotionless, loyal only to him. Jason, with the instincts of someone who has lived on the edge of life and death, senses a grave threat. But what shocks him most is that Michael no longer hides it. In a recent exchange, Michael looked Jason in the eye and said, "Family isn't always an ally. Sometimes, they're the biggest obstacle to progress." The sentence struck like a blade, severing the final emotional tie between them. Sonny, though mostly withdrawn from operations, can feel the nightmare materializing. The son he once protected and sacrificed everything for is now not just distant, he's prepared to strike if Sonny tries to reclaim any control. Sonny's informants have begun to vanish mysteriously. Longtime family partners are shifting allegiance to Michael's new structures. Those who once held the keys to financial secrets are suddenly retired or missing. Michael hasn't just changed. He's mutated. Emotion no longer drives him, it's a tool for manipulation. Tears, apologies, promises, once the foundation of family bonds, are now crushed into bargaining chips. And once a man learns to place power above love, no one is safe. Carly, Jason, Sonny, Willow, even Wiley, could become costs Michael is willing to pay if they stand in the way of his ultimate ambition. This is no longer a story of a son finding his place in the family. It's the story of a man remaking the family in his own image. A standard with no room for weakness, forgiveness, or dissent. And Port Charles, amid all its growing chaos, is about to enter its darkest era yet. The era of Michael Corinthos, a man willing to destroy even his own bloodline if that's what it takes. Gio, once considered merely an outsider in the complex power web of the Corinthos family, is now stepping into the center of the game with a completely new role, not as someone hidden away. Not as a victim of family secrets, but as a figure of awakening and the final glimmer of hope that might pull Michael back from the brink of destruction. In a Port Charles increasingly fractured by ambition, betrayal, and a shifting power structure, it is Gio who first dares to confront the darkness forming within his cousin, and dares to intervene. Dares to save. As Michael sinks deeper into the shadows and his decisions begin to threaten not only enemies but loved ones, Jason, Carly, Sunny, even Willow, Gio is the only one who doesn't fear, doesn't avoid, and refuses to stay silent. Because Gio understands what it feels like to be betrayed, to be torn from personal truth, to be dragged into a game he never asked to play. That gives him a unique ability to sense the madness quietly growing within Michael, to see the cracks others miss, and to know that if no one steps in to stop it, Michael won't just destroy his enemies, he'll destroy himself and everything the Corinthos family ever built. In a bold move, Gio approaches Michael, not with lectures, not with moral sermons, but with sincerity, something Michael hasn't heard in a world filled with strategic handshakes and hollow praise. Gio doesn't come to persuade, he comes to remind Michael of who he truly is, a brother, a father, a man who once swore never to follow the blood-soaked path Sunny walked. Gio brings with him the images Michael has tried to forget, Wiley's laughter, Amelia's eyes, the exhausted forgiveness in Willow's gaze, fragments of memory that may be the only weapon strong enough to fight the obsession with power that's suffocating Michael's soul. But Joe's act of standing up for Michael isn't just personal, it's redefining his role within the Corinthos family. From a nameless, hidden child, Gio now stands as a new pillar, not bearing the Corinthos name, but embodying the will to protect it in a way no one ever has, with integrity. That's why Joe's intervention doesn't just shake Michael, it destabilizes the entire family power structure. Those who once viewed Gio as an outsider are forced to reconsider. Jason, ever loyal to Sunny, begins to see that Gio may be the only one close enough to reach Michael. Carly, the mother ruled by emotion, starts to believe Gio might do what she and Sunny could not. Touch the last shred of humanity left in her son. However, the deeper Gio involves himself, the more of a target he becomes. The forces manipulating Michael, especially Sidwell, begin to see Gio as a threat. The attacks start quietly, anonymous threats, leaked documents, and even the assassinations of witnesses tied to Michael's shady financial dealings. Now Gio must fight not only to save Michael, but to protect himself from a power vortex he never wanted to enter. Joe's connection to the Corinthos family is no longer just about blood. It's become a symbolic battle, between what the family once stood for, loyalty, kinship, honor, and what it's becoming under Michael's rule, manipulation, domination, and absolute control. Joe's story is that of a young man who dares to stand in the storm, not to run from it, but to preserve the humanity of a family losing its way. And his unwavering presence is shifting everything. Michael begins to hesitate. Not out of fear, but because, for the first time, someone looks at him not with judgment or submission, but with the eyes of a true younger brother, unafraid to challenge, but also unwilling to give up hope. And that is what sparks the beginning of the collapse. Michael's hesitation triggers panic in those backing him. Joe's rise causes them to lose their grip. The battle to come will no longer be between crime syndicates, but between what remains of the soul, between power and human essence, between a Michael standing on the edge of annihilation, and a Gio trying to pull him back into the light, even if it costs him everything. Because sometimes, the one who saves a family isn't the strongest one. It's the one who dares to step into the deepest darkness, just to hold on to a heart that still knows how to feel.